I have shoes on, so I can't see the name. So yeah.
Okay,
All right.
we are live recording.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're so happy to have you all here. And I've put together some notes here for to meet, answer your questions and to give you a little bit of a background and who we are and what we've been up to in the last few years. But I'm also open to lots of any questions that you might have. And I want to share with you before I start that the UUA has printed this book that we got when we became a member. It's called Our Chosen Faith. Now it's called A Chosen Faith. This was really useful to us as an intro to Unitarian Universalism. They also have, and you could borrow a copy of this if you would like to read either one of those. And then they also have a book called 100 Questions That Non-Members Ask About UUs. So if there are questions I can't answer, it might be in here. We can go from there. So I'd like to begin, change the slide, with just talking about the agenda. As soon as we see it.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we're just gonna have a brief centering and welcoming and icebreaker. We'll talk a little bit about community agreements, and then we'll get into the gist of the class. And so the centering activity, I would like to read a poem by John O'Donohue. It's called For a New Beginning. In out of the way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you were ready to emerge. For a long time, it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with seduction of safety and the gray promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered, would you always live like this? Then the delight, when your courage kindled and you stepped out onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning. That is at one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will home in a new rhythm, where your soul senses the world that awaits you. Now I was thinking of, go ahead. There you go. Same time. I was thinking of having a little introduction icebreaker, and I would love to do that, except I'm just afraid that we're really going to run out of time. And if we have time later, we might be able to do that. And I have another kind of intro activity too. If you want to change the slide, thank you. So I just came up with, I borrowed this from another group, some community agreements, but I would definitely take any other additions or comments about this. But hopefully you will be able to stay engaged, speak your truth, listen to understand. If anybody would share anything in confidence, we would keep that confidential, ask for help when needed, and support one another. Can we agree to that? And is there any additions or questions?
That's why we're recording this, to be confidential.
Right. There's that, but we can edit it if we need to. All right.
We accept.
Now you promise not to be snarky.
Agreeing with the agreements.
I seconded it. I seconded the snarky. All right, so this, now we're gonna get into it a little bit. And I know that probably some of you know some of this, but maybe some of you don't. So I'm just gonna go over quickly that yes, we were mostly formed, we were originally considered Christians. Unitarians were considered Christians in the beginning, but so we do take a lot of our information or framework from Christianity, but we also draw from Judaism and Buddhism. And I love this quote from the Dalai Lama. And because one of our tenets, I would say, is that we don't, if you have to decide between faith and science, or science and spirituality, we don't just say, oh, that's a bunch of bunk. The science is a bunch of bunk. We kind of try to meld the two together. And so the Dalai Lama said, if anything in Buddhist practice is of immediate benefit for health or well-being, it should be taken out of the religious context, tested by science to verify its benefits, and then shared as widely as possible so everyone, whether they're Buddhist or not, can benefit. And I think he was talking things about like meditation and stuff. And but it was a good reminder to us that we can draw from the wisdom of all kinds of faiths, not just one particular faith. And that's definitely what we try to do. And many of you are also yay, we're back. Come on. Many of you are also probably familiar with the golden rule of treating other people the way you want to be treated. And you can find that something like that, some kind of interpretation of that in almost any world religion. So those are some of the things that we draw from. Michael Servetus is one of the very earliest Unitarians that we draw from. He was burned at the stake by John Calvin in Geneva in the 1500s because of his beliefs. And then there was the king in Transylvania, King John Sigismund, I don't know how to say that, that said that religious tolerance was the rule in Transylvania, that you should be able to believe, practice what you believe. And he made that rule, and that was the first country that actually made that statement. That was in 1568. So then a man named George de Benneville in 1741 came to Pennsylvania and founded American Universalism back then. Few years later, John Murray emigrated to the United States, and he became the first Universalist minister, and he founded a church in Massachusetts in 1779. But
Massachusetts likes to be the first to do like anything.
Right. Yeah, but we have to say, and Boston is our headquarters, right? Boston, Massachusetts is the headquarters. But one of the leaders of our district many years ago said that actually, even though Boston was first or Massachusetts was first, Minnesota has more UUs than anybody in the country.
Really?
Yeah, more UU churches. So Unitarian Universalism is a religion that encourages each individual to develop a personal faith. It draws from many different religions in the belief that no one religion has all the answers, and that most have something to teach us. From Christianity, we take the teachings of Christ. From Buddhism, we take the power of meditation. From Native American and other earth-centered traditions, we take respect for the earth and reverence for natural cycles and reverence for natural cycles. I don't know what title here. Unitarian Universalism is a way of being religious rather than embracing a specific religious doctrine. So, next slide. So 80 years after Universalism came to the United States, Minnesotans heard their first Universalist sermon. It was at First Universalist Church of Minneapolis. And they founded their, it wasn't the same building because they moved around, but they was founded by a lot of people who brought this brand of liberal Christianity to the frontier town that was Minneapolis in 1859. Many of Minneapolis's early leaders were members of this congregation. So are any of these names familiar to you? Washburn, Pillsbury, Lowry, Crosby, Loring, King, and Morrison all belong to that first congregation. They were not only founders of the Minneapolis flour and lumber industries, they helped found many of Minneapolis's institutions, from Lakewood Cemetery to the parks and library system, the city's early transportation system, Washburn Orphan Home, Unity House, and the Minneapolis Institute of Arts, not to mention General Mills. They found inspiration in the sermons of the Reverend Keyes, Tuttle, and Shutter as they fueled the progressive ground building programs that put Minneapolis on the map. Okay, and then our history. We began.
What's it doing?
I don't know. There we go.
There you go.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a tricky finger.
It's okay.
I just pressed it. Sorry. Just realized I meant to
Oh,
give that to you.
oh, thank you.
So we started in the fall of 1988. Reverend Eric Haugen had been a minister in two congregations, rural congregations in Iowa. They shared his ministry, and he had grown up here in Eagan. His dad had recently retired from West Publishing Company, and he started a trust fund for his, I think, 3 kids. I think Eric had a brother and a sister. And he developed a trust fund for them that was supposed to be used after they died. And Eric came up with this idea that, could I use the trust fund now to live on while I start this church? And the reason he started it here in Dakota County in Eagan is that the district, it used to be called Prairie Star District, is our district in this region. The district had done a demographic study back in, like, I don't know what year it was. Yeah, 85, 86, I don't know when. And they decided that, I think it was Wayzata and Eagan were the 2 most likely places for a UU church demographically, because they were growing young families and the income level, education level, and things like that. But for whatever reason, they chose, the district chose Wayzata to support. And Eric was upset about that. He said, no, it should be this one. So he decided to start, he went to Unitarian in St. Paul and talked to a few people like Jack Barwise and a couple other folks, the Pilcuses, and they decided that they were going to try to start a church here. So they put an ad in the paper, and they said, you know, are you looking for a liberal religious home? And I won't go into a lot of the details, but I was searching for something. I knew that there was something missing in my life. And I talked to Chuck and I said, you know, I don't really want to go to the Lutheran church, but that I was raised in, but I do want to have some kind of faith community that I can bring my children up in. So we saw this ad, and we took our son, who was like 2 years old at the time, on the first day, and we couldn't get in the door that we tried. It was at Pilot Knob Elementary School. We couldn't get in, and Pete just started crying, but mommy, I want to go to church. And but we found this second door that was open, and we got in it, and we haven't turned back, right? And at that point, a lot of new families were coming in, and it was a really great time. Then we had our daughter in 1990, and Eric Haugen was at the hospital that afternoon after I delivered her, and Chuck's quartet came to sing and serenade us. And little Emily looked up, and when her father started singing the solo, And when people don't believe me, I said, well, my minister was there. He can witness it. He
Bear with us.
saw it,
Yes.
right? So anyway, but Eric, after about 3 years, he started to feel like we were too dependent on him. I don't know how he had to leave. He decided that he needed to leave the church. And at that same time, Minnesota Valley was going through some struggles with their minister, Lori Bushbaum. And so the group that wanted to support Lori Bushbaum got wind of some of the struggles we were having with Eric Haugen. And so we put our heads together and our hearts together and kind of merged. And that's when we got Peg and Kitty and Bill and a few other couples too that are no longer in the church.
Stephen Sue Crosby.
Oh, Stephen Suk back. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's right. Absolutely. So for a few years, we had Lori Bushbaum, and then she had a baby, and then her husband got a job in England, and they took off for that. And then there was a few more struggles. And in about 1994, because she was in England in 94, that we were kind of burnt out of having a minister for a while. We thought, yeah, maybe we don't need one as much as we thought we did. I don't know if that's putting it the way I should put it, but we were just a little nervous about it.
A little bit gun shy.
Gun shy, yeah, it's probably a good way to say it. We got gun shy, and we have a lot of UU clergy in this area. And so we had student ministers and retired ministers. We had a lot of support. And so we were able to have a program committee that would bring in speakers, and we had a viable and a strong religious education program for the children, and we worked together really well for many, many years. However, I was a president until 2000 for a couple of years at that end, and I met Jill Twilliger when she was a student minister, being kind of a liaison for the different campuses, universities in the metro area. And she was connecting with us to see if we wanted to do anything. And I got wind of her. And so I asked her if she'd be interested in being the first a consulting minister for us. And she was a consulting minister until her husband
Moved away. I've heard.
got transferred, excuse me, and moved away. And we actually got to help ordain Jill Twilliger, so that was really cool. And then when she left for another part of the time, we had a lot of student ministers, consulting ministers. And that whole time we were, I only put the ministers and not the building. And I'm not remembering what year that was that we went into the senior center. I mean, the Bodaroo. When did we go into Bodaroo?
Probably around that, when we bought the building.
No.
Megan was
Bodaroo.
born in
Yeah,
96, so. And she was 6.
He was there, right.
So 96 was Bodaroo, and for the next 4 years.
It was after Lori Bushbaum left. So yeah, it would have been 96.
So we had the senior center before that.
Right.
Yeah.
We've been
We
meeting
moved a
in a
lot.
lawyer's office. We met in a childcare center. We met in the senior center at Burnsville School District. We met
Here.
Yes, we met here. We met in our house.
What?
Community
Your
center.
house. Yep.
What-
Yes, we did it at least a year there.
It had just the staircase. That went
That's
down.
Bodaroo.
That Bodaroo.
That's
Okay.
Bodaroo.
It's great.
Yeah, so
Oh,
Bodaroo
center.
was the basement
gone.
of like a
Business office.
business.
Some kind of,
office
yeah,
building.
very
Yeah,
nondescript grade.
and it was the
ugly
first
building.
time
It
that
was.
we weren't just renting space on a Sunday morning, and it was really nice to be able to unpack and have our own classrooms and building and stuff. But there was definitely other challenges with that building. And especially when it got condemned. You had to get out of there. So Anyway, then but what I was gonna say about that was when we were in Bodaroo, John Cummins, who is a pretty well-known, Unitarian minister who's been retired many years now. He spoke at our church and he asked me point blank, I was teaching RE, Sunday school, and he came in before preaching and he's like, when are you guys gonna buy a building? And I'm like, well, we're just so small and we're so young and we don't have all the resources and stuff. Gosh, First Unitarian, we bought a building after 8 years or whatever, and you just gotta do it. You just gotta do it. I don't know if that's true, but that's what he says. And you just gotta bite the bullet and you do it. And I just always had that in the back of my head. So we started doing some fundraising when we were in Bodaroo. And then we found this, we went to the community center when the building got condemned, but we kept saving money to buy our own building. And then that's when we found the building in Burnsville. And that was in 2003. We had to do a lot of work to remodel it and get it all to code and things like that. And it was very cool. It was a lot of work, but it was very cool to see what we could do together. And but then we just didn't grow as much as we thought we would, and all of our children grew up. Did you do that for? And
I came back.
right. And so I was teaching Sunday school for 3 kids. And if one of them was sick, it was like, oh man, there's only 2 kids left. And now we have 1 kid again. So we're planting the seeds. But yeah, so it's been a journey. And then recently we were able to sell the building to Sage Prairie, and they let us stay there for another 5 years after that. And we still have this money. We hope that maybe that we will be able to buy a building at some point that will be workable for us and help us to continue to serve Dakota County in this way. Then we had Stephanie, and we also were able to ordain her. But then she graduated from chiropractic school and started her business up in Grand Marais. So we lost her, but then we found Barbara, and then we lost her when she found another job of her dream job. And then we found Brian. So here we are. And in
You
between,
can't move away.
Not planning on just buying a farm. that's
And
all.
Right.
yeah,
right.
your husband can't get transferred.
Right.
But we've had other student ministers and stuff that I didn't list here. So there's been a whole variety of ministers and community members helping us, leading us and supporting us. All right. So I love this slide. I showed this to the council the other day, and Alice said she really liked this one too. So I needed to share this with you. So for us, religion is an ongoing search for meaning, purpose, value, and spiritual depth in one's life. We believe that individuals are entitled to make their own search and that not all persons are going to share the same beliefs. We believe there is wisdom and value in most all religions, but that no one religion has all the answers. There is no one size fits all. We believe in an inner harmony that will lead to ethical action. And I just heard in the trans class too, I heard this idea, which I love. Instead of being like-minded, we want to be like-hearted and open-hearted and open-minded. Okay. So some of our members have a hard time with the word religion, and other people have the hard time with the word spirituality. But I want to share with you a possible thought that if you can take the religion out of spirituality and focus on just the part of yourself that is connected to the rest of the world and consider that as your spirituality, then maybe that's, it helps me. That spirituality is defined as the inner sense of a relationship to a higher power that is loving and guiding. The word you give to that higher power might be there's a whole variety of words that you could use. You could say God, but you don't have to. You could say love, nature, spirit, universe, creator, or other words that represent a divine presence. The important part is that the spirituality encompasses our relationship and dialogue with the universe. And it is a relationship with all life, both intimate and transcendent. For current mental health crisis, the growing political divisions, and the need for awakened leaders all make it clear to me that spirituality and ethics must be addressed. We can't ignore that. In our schools, in our places of worship, in our homes, they all need to have focus on spirituality along with the other areas of our identity. So our earliest memories include may often include some spiritual moments that you don't even realize sometimes that you've had. Oftentimes, you to help you understand this, you might think about where you were, who you were with, what you were doing, and what kind of experience it created. So I'd like to take a moment here for you to stop and think about what memories do you come to mind for you that you would maybe consider spiritual. You don't have to share them with us, but you can if you want to. And then once we talk about that, we also want to think about what factors impede currently now, what factors impede your spirituality, and how much of a problem is that? How prevalent is that in your life? Anybody have anything they'd like to share?
One of my first aha moments in the Methodist church that I grew up in was about the golden rule and learning about it in Sunday school, or maybe my mom was talking about it or whatever. But I told my mom, I said, why doesn't just everybody do that? You know, how nice the world would be if everybody would just do that. Why don't they do that? And yeah.
Anybody else?
I think my first experience with any type of spirituality was we used to attend a really big Hispanic church called the Lion of Judah, and the music would just get so loud, and everyone was just jumping up and down, breathing and like everyone was Hispanic, so everyone was just real rambunctious. And it always brought like lots of joy and like happiness and like energy that I didn't really like. I couldn't really understand at that point, but
Or probably maybe experience other places.
yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I think, yeah, I'm really glad that the intention circle there, and I was reading it carefully, it ends up, if any, was there your intention, if any? And it's like, phew, because the couple of most spiritual experiences I've had in my life, the common thread is I have no intention.
Right.
To, I was
It
just
just kind of hits you in the face.
yeah, I'm very open, very feeling very exploratory, like, oh, what's fun, anyway, yeah,
Nice.
so that's all.
Thanks, Linda.
I've had similar experiences that you did, Josh, in school, in church, and I think I felt even, this was Episcopalian, so there wasn't a whole lot of jumping around and joy. There wasn't, it was pretty stoic, but I still got some messages out of it, or some things. It gave me some structure for how I was supposed to be or what was expected of me, and I wanted so badly to be a good person. And then they would talk about that, and I think leaving church sometimes, and I felt real excited about that, but then I went back to the world and to my family, which was, you were swearing at somebody by the time you're in the car trying to do the parking lot, and I remembered the same thought that Chuck had, why don't people just do this? Why is there such a gap between how we act and feel when we're in this building, having this experience, and then you go home and off into the rest of the world, and it was hell. It was really difficult, and sometimes I saw the help from other church members and that social connectedness, camaraderie. My favorite part was at the end of the service when we all went down to get cookies.
Yeah.
And everybody could just stand around, eat cookies, and we could relax a little bit. Yeah,
And treats.
but at home, it was really difficult. And it was hard to put, as a little kid, all those things you were supposedly learning into a practice when you were just a little kid.
And you
So-
don't have models, doesn't seem like you
Right,
have
didn't have
models.
models, and then as I got older, family just fractured. And some went into being very, very, I don't know which word to use, evangelist, Pentecostal, really judgmental, really Bible based. So then that kind of cut off a lot of conversation when it all goes to scripture. So there's a million ways you could be wrong. And I've got it documented, it's irrefutable truth, because it's right here in the Bible. Hallelujah, praise Jesus. Go to hell. And you can't be my brother anymore, but anyway, that was.
Well, there's a Native American belief that these experiences come into our lives to teach us something. So that I think aligns with Unitarian Universalism really well, that we are seekers, we're constantly learning. And speaking of learning, so we have over the years in our religious education program, and I realize many of you don't have young children, and that's okay. Some of you do though. And but I still think all our religious education kind of framework works whether you're 8 or 80. This is constantly, we are constantly learning. We have more to learn. Oftentimes, what's the Einstein quote? I think the more I learn, the more I realize of what I don't know. You don't know what you don't know, right? Until you start to learn something and then you realize you didn't know a lot more. I totally screwed up that quote, but you guys get the idea, I hope. So the rainbow path, or these rainbow principles, right now, that's it's being revised, I think, but we have 7 principles that we it's not a creed. We don't have to promise that we're going to follow them, but it helps us guide it. It's something of a model that we could strive to achieve. And so over the years, the religious education program for our children kind of reworded them to make them a little bit more easy to understand. And this one, this image that I got is slightly different than what we used to call the rainbow path. But it's just the Roy G. Biv colors, the colors of the rainbow. So each letter of the colors starts with each statement, so that helps us. So how many of you remember the rainbow path? Okay, so red is respect all beings. Orange, offer fair and kind treatment to all. Yellow, yearn to learn. I like this one even better. Yearn to learn throughout life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Green,
Grow
a little each day. And grow by exploring ideas is this one, right? Blue or believe
Believe in your ideas and act on them.
And indigo,
Insist on peace,
freedom,
freedom,
and justice for all. And violet,
value all three.
or the interdependence. with
All
nature.
nature.
Right.
And that's the gift of all creation. It's fun to say.
Right. And every time I hear the first one, the respect all beings, I have to.
You have to tell that story.
Tell the story. So a former family of our congregation had 2 kids, Brett and Leanne. And you know this one?
Yep.
And,
I don't know this even.
Oh,
I don't
the
know
little
this.
girl, Leanne, was younger than her brother Brett. And she's like 4 years old or something, and we've been learning the rainbow path. She runs up to her mom one day, mommy, mommy, he's not respecting my bean. She said, what? Respect my bean. Right? So it took a while, but finally her mom realized that she was saying being,
Yeah.
not bean. That's
So that she knew what it was supposed to mean.
right.
Yeah.
So, when I was creating these slides, I found this handout that we had created a marketing material, some brochures for people. And it had a collection of quotes that I really like. So I wanted to share that with you. So these are some of the things that Unitarian Universalists say about their church, why they go to church. It's not on your slide.
Oh, it's not on.
It's in my notes, sorry.
Okay.
About why they come to church and bring their kids to church and things like that. And one more other thing I wanted to say is, we used to use the motto, we came to bring our children to church, but we stayed for ourselves. So that has held true for us, that's for sure. So here are some of the quotes. I want a religion that respects the differences between people and affirms every person as an individual. I want a church that values children, that welcomes them on their own terms, a church they are eager to attend on Sunday mornings. I want a congregation that cherishes freedom and encourages open dialogue on questions of faith, one in which it is okay to change your mind. I want a religious community that affirms spiritual exploration and reason as ways of finding truth. And I want a church that acts locally and thinks globally on the great issues of our time: world peace, women's rights, racial justice, homelessness, LGBTQ rights, and protection of the environment. So recently, Brian and I took a 10-week course through Columbia University Teachers College, and Lisa Miller kind of headed this group up. And Lisa Miller wrote some really good books. One's called The Awakened Brain, and one's called The Spiritual Child. And one of the most valuable things that I got from that, and I got a lot of valuable things from it, was this chart. I teach about child development, right? I teach teachers. And one of the things that just blew my mind, I'm so excited that I could share this with, it goes back to that spirituality and religion kind of thing, is that all of us are in this world. We need to do these things, right? We need to find out who we are. How do we see ourselves? How do we be in relationship with others? What kind of work do we do? And so on. So all these things are the human tasks that all people do, right? When you have that spiritual core, if you have that as part of your life, these things look like this. If you don't have the spiritual core, these tasks look like this. And I just love this. So for instance, if you are finding a career and you have a spiritual core, you're going to look at your career as a calling and a way of serving the world, right? If you don't have that spiritual core, you're just gonna, hey, I can make a lot of money doing this, right? And using my talents for personal gain. Okay, that's a big difference. Okay, your place in the world. If you don't have a spiritual core, you're gonna feel ultimately alone. But if you have that spiritual core, you're always connected to the world.
Say the name of her books again.
Sure.
Yeah.
The Spiritual Child,
And The Awakened Brain.
The Awakened Brain. Both Chuck and I read The Awakened Brain.
That's really good.
And we're both like, oh my God. Oh, did you read that part? Did you read this part?
I use the awakened brain in my religious education class too.
Oh,
Yeah, her basic premise, I'll try to give it to you succinctly. She thinks that we have an awakened brain, which is that spiritual core, or we have an achievement brain. And her idea is that you gotta have both, right? You need both. You don't just selflessly give and give and give, right? Without any kind of sustenance, but you don't just take and take and take either. You know, you need both,
Balance?
right? And her lesson that on this 10-week course that we took for teachers, her lesson was called Science and Spirituality. So she's a psychologist and she has all this data that backs up all the stuff that she's saying, which we don't need, but other people do. All right, so let's go through how we doing on time, by the way. Oh, I think we're doing pretty good. I had no idea how long it would take. So I just thought I'd share a few more just kind of common things about Unitarian Universalism that you may or may not already know. But the chalice, does anybody know how that all started, or any of the new people? So the chalice, and this is just one design of it, it's our primary symbol of Unitarian Universalist faith tradition. Many of the congregations kindle a flaming chalice in their gatherings and their worship, and feature the chalice in their logos and things like that. Hans Deutsch was an Austrian artist, and he first brought together the chalice and the flame as a Unitarian symbol during his work with the Unitarian Service Committee during World War II. To him, the image had connotations of sacrifice and love. Unitarian Universalists today have many different interpretations of the flaming chalice, including the light of reason, the warmth of community, and the flame of hope.
And wasn't that, didn't they use that as a sign in like home windows, that this was a safe
Oh,
place
I
for
think
Jews?
I think you're right.
Folks who were being persecuted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and then this is Forest Church, and he was a leader in the congregations for many years. He died in 2009.
He co-authored.
He co-authored the Chosen Faith book. And I love this quote about how we've inherited a magnificent theological legacy in a sweeping answer to creeds that divide the human family. Unitarianism proclaims that we spring from a common source, and Universalism that we share a common destiny. Very simply and beautifully. So we will keep.
He's son of Idaho Senator Frank Church, if anyone
Right.
remembers Frank Church.
Yeah.
We keep our minds open to the religious questions people have struggled with in all times and places. We uphold the free search for truth. We will not be bound by a statement of belief. We do not ask anyone to subscribe to it. We say ours is a non-creedal religion. Ours is a free faith. We strive to be more like-hearted than like-minded. Like I said before, as Dallas Rising says, we have a choice about how we approach anything unfamiliar to us. We can choose suspicion and fear, or we can choose curiosity and wonder. Our spirits are nourished when we choose curiosity and wonder. We believe that religious wisdom is ever changing. Human understanding of life and death, the world and its mysteries is never final. Revelation is continuous. We celebrate unfolding truths known to teachers, prophets, and sages throughout the ages. We affirm the worth of all genders. We believe people should be encouraged to think for themselves. We know people differ in their opinions and lifestyles, and we believe these differences should be honored because our diversity strengthens and enriches us all. We seek to act as a moral force in the world, believing that ethical living is the supreme witness of religion. The here and now and the effects our actions will have on the future generations deeply concerns us. We know that our relationships with one another, with diverse peoples, races, and nations should be governed by justice, equity, and compassion. Each UU congregation is the fulfillment of a long heritage that goes back hundreds of years to courageous people who struggled for freedom in thought and faith. On this continent, we include the Massachusetts settlers and the founders of the Republic. And then, as we've been talking about all this year about being radical, showing radical hospitality, we strive to be a welcoming congregation. So we want to disrupt. Up again? We want to
Jump shoe on me.
we want to disrupt the cycles of brokenness, and radical hospitality requires a fundamental shift from a simple practice of offering welcome to an outward movement to stand with others. Welcome back, particularly those who are at society's margins. So there's 3 ways that we can all be involved, and this goes perfectly with what we heard today at church. So joining a church is a big moment for people and for us as well, for the members that are already here. We all have a responsibility to make sure that you all feel welcome and that you find a place in the midst of this community and continue with your spiritual journey. So in return, we're asking you that you make an effort to become involved in the church in ways that are most meaningful to you. We suggest 3 things. Find a small group that feeds your soul. We'll be getting more small groups as we go along. Join the work of a committee of your choosing, because many hands make light work. And support the church with your financial gifts. Please know that becoming a member is not required, but we do welcome you. Some people choose to remain friends of the church for years, becoming as involved as members. But please note that only members can vote in the congregational elections and decisions. And only members are counted by the denomination by its annual survey. The more actual members we have, the more influence we can have as a liberal religious body in our community and in the world. And the last slide, can't believe it, not even 2 o'clock yet. It's just some acronyms.
We love acronyms.
Yes, you're gonna hear acronyms. Of course, you all know what DUUC stands for, right?
Dark.
Correct. And RE?
Religious.
Education.
I grew up here in Sunday school, so I didn't at first know what RE stood for. So, right? OWL, anybody know what OWL stands for?
life.
Yes, and what is that, Dan?
Wonderful education program that you go through at school too.
Ah, well, I bet it's a little bit different than the school one.
Different than the school one.
So Our Whole Lives is sex education. It's lifespan sex education. So they have kindergarten, middle school, high school, young adults, seniors. They have it throughout the ages.
I didn't know
And-
it started that young. I thought it was junior high. Didn't it used to
Typically,
be
no,
teenagers?
that's the main one,
Oh,
but
okay.
they have the curriculum for all ages.
It was before Our Whole Lives. It was another.
Oh, yeah, it had a different name.
I think they expanded the age when they went to Our Whole Lives.
I could have done.
Yeah, it had a different name.
Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Don't matter.
Moose Jaw.
Oh, yeah.
Minnesota Unitarian Universalist Social Justice Alliance.
Alliance, yep.
Alliance.
And UUA is easy, right? Unitarian Universalist Association, that's National Association. UUSC,
Universe.
Service committee.
Service Committee, yeah, so they do service projects, big service projects. How about Drum? I like this one.
I don't know.
I forget. I
I always have to look it up, but I know what it is, but I don't remember the acronym. Diverse and Revolutionary UU Multicultural Ministries.
Oh,
Yeah. When you go to GA, you experience a lot of drum workshops and presentations. That's good. And then speaking of the next acronym, GA.
General Assembly.
Yep, it's our annual conference every year. Right?
What comes?
Oh, cups, I meant to put that one down too.
CUUPS,
Yes, CUUPS, anybody know what that is?
Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans.
Oh, really?
Yes. So, any other acronyms you want to know about that I didn't list?
Isn't there an acronym for the UU atheists?
Don't know.
Not that I
I know
know.
that's like cups, there's.
Well, we'll find out. We'll look it up and find out. Well, thank you, everybody. I can't believe I was able to.
1 minute early.
And if there's other questions, like I said, feel free and we can do another meeting or,
Well, we just ask questions now, I mean.
yeah, absolutely.
Who's job too, what are their projects, what are they?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. They're gonna be, they're having a booth at Pride. The Pride Festival in June. They're doing a lot of UU the Vote, and Moose Jaw is coming in May to our church, and they're gonna do a little presentation and give us a little update.
Okay.
But the trans inclusion classes that we're taking is part of Moose Jaw. They're hosting that. So that, yeah, they have their hands in a lot of things, a lot of good stuff, as always. With the help of all the congregations, because they need all of
Draw
us
from
to work together. Yeah. Any other questions?
Are there cupcakes left over?
Yeah.
Got some frozen money.
Well, thanks. Yeah, like we were saying, we might make these like into modules and record just little segments, so it could be on demand. But if there's other questions that you have, please feel free to check with Brian or me, and we can work on more information getting it out.
One thing, so you talked about Unitarianism and Universalism.
Yeah, but I didn't talk
Talk
the
about
merging.
how the merging,
And I meant to do
even
that.
62, if I remember
I thought it
right,
was
early
61.
early 60s,
Yeah,
but they were two separate,
yeah, and I thought
I
I
guess.
put it in my notes, but I don't have it there. Oh, I know where it is.
What's in this more attitudes, attitudes? Yeah, yeah, that's better. Yeah. I just think it's like.
There were more similarities than difference between the two. You know.
By that time, anyway.
And the humanist movement was big in the Unitarian church in the third, I think, 30s.
Yeah.
Go nibble.
But they were still gonna.
Oh, yeah, so that's like I want to really. Yes, yeah, but I was saying the same day.